Hey, gang. I figured that if I'm going to do this as much as I do this, then we might as well just take it back to when the show had a format called Stream On that I was doing like 5 years ago. So we're going back to Stream On because we're going to have themes for the show. Hey, Sam. Hope you're doing well. And on today's show, we'll be talking about Ween, They Might Be Giants, Crash Test Dummies. I'm going to do a thing that's sort of going to be possible again because social distancing is like a thing. But I'm going to talk about my friends who I miss and I'm plan on at some point reconnecting with through doing all this digital stuff that we're doing all the time, whether it's house party or this or whatever else. So today we're going to be talking about my dude Dylan Reece. Dylan is one of my buddies from Austin, but I borrowed an acoustic guitar today to record some stuff with, and I remembered this very magical story about Dylan, which I'll be sharing shortly. But again, to start it off, let's talk about Ween, They Might Be Giants, and Crash Test Dummies, because it's a thing I've been thinking about because I listen to music a lot and often, but in particular lately, I was trying to find whimsical songs about death, which is a fun theme that anyone can relate to, and I'm sure everyone loves. And I remembered that, I didn't remember, but I'm often reminded by the fact that people either love or hate They Might Be Giants, Crash Test Dummies, or Ween. And there's not a lot of gray area either. I think you're either one of those like diehard fans or you just simply hate the sound of them. And I think the reason that people hate the sound of them is because, like I was talking about, whimsical songs about death, right? We have these notions as people who listen to music that, hello Jessica, these whimsical notions about music that go, hey, a love song, when the lyrics are like this, should sound a certain way, should follow these kind of certain melodies and certain kind of musical cues that, whether we're paying heavy attention to the lyrics or not, go into that ebb and flow and that kind of, what's the word I'm thinking of? The sort of non sequiturs that we pick up on about the way the theme of the song is, right? So if you're listening to Raining Blood by Slayer, the lyrics are about war and about raining blood from a lacerated sky. And so the songs then match our expectations or our learned expectations of the themes of the lyrics or of the music or whatever else. The thing about Ween, They Might Be Giants, and Crash Test Dummies is they kind of subvert those notions. And I think a lot of people sort of have a hard time with that, especially when they're big themes. Like love is a big theme, but it's so ubiquitous in the kind of music that we listen to that love songs are just another thing, right? And we know that love songs can be sad or they can be upbeat or whatever else, but for the most part, we know what a love song is going to sound like. But the problem you get to with Ween, and They Might Be Giants, and Crash Test Dummies, is they tell a different kind of story and a different kind of narrative, often in ways that we don't think about hearing them, at least sonically or melodically. They Might Be Giants have that fantastic song, I Hope That I Get Old Before I Die, right? And it's a song about dying. I'll be wearing a shirt, I'll be digging in the dirt, whatever, I hope that I get old before I die. Like, that whole song is just about, hey, I really don't want to die young. But here's a very upbeat song about, all the ways I don't want to die before, hopefully, I don't die. And that kind of screws with people's sort of ability to go into a sort of beta way of listening to music. And I don't think all of us always have to be active music listeners. In fact, one of the great things about music in general is that you can put music on and you don't have to think about it. And it can kind of enhance and illustrate and kind of score your day in a way that is very pleasing often, that is very helpful in day-to-day life. But again, if those things like Crash Test Dummies, which are sort of talking about these big weird concepts about God sometimes, or about nature, there's a very fantastic love song they do on God Shuffled His Feet about worrying about tornadoes and train wrecks and all earthquakes and all their manner of horrible things that happen when you're just trying to be close to someone and intimate with them. And that's a weird thing, right? That's something that I think people aren't unfamiliar with, but at the same time, because of our notions of how a love song should sound in regards to the lyrics, there's a schism there. And I think a lot of people find that Ween songs, They Might Be Giants and Crash Test Dummies, are challenging because of that. That is my very brief TED talk on melody and expectations through lyrics and delivery in songs. So that's part one of the show today, if you guys are just tuning in. Part two is my dude Dylan Reece. So speaking of music, Dylan is amazing. I met Dylan, I believe, through Deb Webb when I was at the University of Texas. Dylan both went to UT and was involved with the Austin Museum of Digital Art with me. We were both, me, him, and Ryan Lauderdale. What's up, Morgan? I miss you too, and thank you. I feel very sweaty right now, so maybe a little less than handsome. I wore this work shirt today to do work with, and it was great when I'm outside, but then I'm in my attic, which is like a sweat lodge right now. So I'm misdressed. I'll survive. But Dylan was one of those guys who, again, electronic music-wise, he was making music. He was listening to a lot of the same stuff I did. A very big fan of Aphex Twin. And we got to be good friends at UT. The reason I was thinking of Dylan today is I borrowed an acoustic guitar. I know I am glistening. I feel like I have glitter on because of the sweaty. Is it supposed to be nice this week? Why can't it just be a nice overcast, fun little non-climate change world? Anyways, I digress. Dylan Reece. Me and Dylan into a lot of the same music. Dylan made music also, which was awesome because I always felt like, as someone who taught himself to play music, whenever I ran across other people making music in the same way that I sort of did, which was on the computer with keyboards and whatever else, I was just always intrigued because I was like, oh my God, they're doing this thing too, and maybe they're actually doing it right and not the way that I myself taught kind of way. But Dylan rolled. Dylan was the first person I went with to Rain, which was amazing, and I'm annoyed the piss out of Dylan. And one of my favorite things about Dylan was that he was always down for a lot of fun, and at the same time was always the voice of just like no. The classic quote to me from Dylan was just, "No, Will, just no." There's a lot of amazing things about Dylan, but I think my favorite thing that I accidentally learned about him one time was there was this apartment on Manor. I think they were probably just called the Manor Apartments in Austin, that at the time Carter lived in, Deb lived in, Dylan lived in. It was this veritable Melrose place, and we did a lot of drinking in those apartment buildings. And also me and Dylan had a really amazing almost very deadly salvia adventure in that building too. But and one of the times that we were drinking, we went over to Carter's house, and one of my favorite party tricks at the time in the mid 2000s was when I'd been drinking, was to play songs that people weren't expecting. So I was like, I'm going to play Every Rose Has Its Thorn by Poison, and on one of Carter's acoustic guitars. And to my wonderful, delighted surprise, Mr. Dylan Reece picked up one of Carter's electric guitars and starts just shredding the solos from that song, and it was incredible. Dylan, again, at that time, still amazing DJ and musician, but I just had no idea he had those beautiful chops in him, and he's one of my favorite friends because he never ceases to surprise and delight and subvert my expectations or my what I think of as classic Dylan Reece. So Dylan, if you happen to watch this later, I love you, buddy. I miss you. Let's have a house party soon. But that's all I got for the show today, guys. I'm gonna go make some wooden swords for my kids for Easter. Because why not? I think that's like an appropriate Easter present for people who don't outright celebrate Easter, right? Okay. If you guys have something you want to know about, talk about, hear about, or for me to shout about like this on a future show, put it in the comments, and I will. I'll dive into it as far as I know how, or as far as what I actually know about it, or give you my worthless opinion about whatever you want to know about. Until then, guys, thanks. Bye.